Hey folks, thanks for coming over to Capitalism for Good. This is a part of a larger project where I am on a mission to interview 100 business leaders about the positive impact that they have on their internal and external communities. It is through these interviews that we will dig into how we can use the ways in which we make and spend our dollars in order to benefit the greater good. Folks, today we have Lisa Tanasi from Mothership Coffee. She's the CEO of Mothership Coffee in Las Vegas, Nevada. And, she is just one of those companies that I found through Instagram in November of 2025 when I was a lot frustrated with what was kind of going on with the state of the world and on a hunt to try to, I didn't realize at the time, but to try to shake up my Instagram algorithm and get it to be a little bit more in line with what I was looking for as far as companies that were utilizing their position to give back to their community and to encourage some strength and some good neighborly vibes between one another, which led me to Lisa, and we are just incredibly lucky to hear from her today. She is just the embodiment of what I thought Mothership Coffee was going to be. It is community, it is positivity, it is inspiration, it is grit, it is reality, it is just so many things, let alone the fact, spoiler alert here, well actually I won't spoil it, you'll have to listen through to the end. She just came up with one of the most iconic slogans for a breakfast deal from my childhood days. She was so honest and transparent and thoughtful in talking about leadership through tragedy and hardship and what it's like to build community through a business. We talk hiring, we talk growing and scaling while keeping values in mind. We talk about just like being humans and little like dots of positivity in one another's days, and that if enough of those little dots add up, then it comes and forms this substantial change in kind of the tide. I'm really excited to let her just take over here. I'll let her jump in. When we first start talking, she is telling me about how she got her start in the espresso small business community in Seattle, Washington. And, I just automatically start peppering her with questions. So enjoy. About when you started, especially Seattle coffee industry at that time, was it what Seattle's coffee industry is now?
Oh, no. There was us. We were the first outdoor espresso bar. The only other espresso business was Starbucks on Pikes Market.
Mm-hmm.
They're like their OG now. They refer to it as like their capital of Starbucks is the one on Pikes Market. Yeah. It was cold and dreary. I was a California girl and I spent my first October in Washington trying to push espresso in a market that all they had was visions of a thick syrup, bitter, dark, horrible, and I so gave away a lot of sweet drinks, like, no, it tastes really good. Taste it like this, was
Yeah.
handing out drinks left and right, shivering. I was so bundled up. I looked like someone, like an Eskimo. I was just so bulked up because I was freezing.
Yeah.
The first year went by and my mom had a full-time job at Ace Hardware. So she was trying to pay the bills and I was working 12-hour days outside, not a day off in a year. And then one day I showed up to work at 4 a.m. and there was a line of cars and people, like literally overnight.
Yeah.
And I went, hey, we might be onto something here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my mom was, really quickly able to quit her job and help. And then we hired our first employee and then our second. And yeah, it was really, really exciting. We were new. It was nobody had heard of anything like what we were doing. It was a pioneer stage. I felt like we were in the Wild West. We were
Yeah.
also having to change health code. There was nothing that was
Oh, yeah.
catered for us. So, working closely with the Washington Health Department and
Oh,
making
yeah.
impactful changes. Yeah, we started our own Washington Espresso Card Association to gather everybody new in the business and to help us launch initiatives and make movement in the industry. And after the first 5 years is when we saw a lot of growth with other people, that said, hey, we saw you outside that grocery store. We want to do that too. It seems like a blast. And my brother, he still builds carts. He was building the carts. So my other brother was doing all the repairs on them. It was a good dynamic. My mom and I did that for 17 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you really have had coffee in your blood since you were a kid. You said
Yes.
18, is that right, when you
Yeah.
started?
Yep. Yep. Started when I was 18. Yeah.
What was it about coffee and espresso?
So I was troubled youth,
Mm,
and it was an opportunity. My brother had just started building espresso carts.
yeah.
So I think we were like his fourth customer. But he's like, hey, if you come to Washington, I have like an opportunity for you and mom. And my mom was just getting divorced. So she was in Oregon. So it was we were both kind of escaping
Yeah.
situation. So it was a great catalyst. We wanted change so desperately,
Yeah.
and this provided it for us. So we just grasped it. We didn't really ask questions like, where do we get our coffee? How do we source our milk? How do we were like, we're in, and just figured it out along the way.
Yeah. Do you think that that helped that you were just kind of, I mean, I'm assuming a little young and naive and like, I don't know
Yeah.
how we're sourcing milk, but we're gonna figure it out. And so you're
Yeah.
not intimidated in the way of like, okay, I know that there's so many options and there's so many things.
Yeah.
And
My nature is that I don't really take no as a final answer.
yeah.
When I do something, I've never thought, oh, what is someone going to think about that? I think I'm the next best thing to sliced bread. Like in my mind, I'm like that. And I knew from a young age, like I had something in me. I didn't know what it was,
Yeah.
but there was something inside of me that was a change maker.
Mm,
And, I marched to my own beat. If I didn't like what you were doing, I didn't do it. I never was pressured like as a peer. I was always the leader. I think that really set me up for this business to be really good at it.
yeah.
I'm not easily intimidated. I'll show up in a room full of men and not think like, oh, I'm the only woman. That doesn't even cross my mind.
Yeah.
It's like I'm amongst peers or I'm amongst, business associates. So it got me in trouble a lot as well.
Yeah.
I was known as, even as a child, my grandfather, my nono, who was from Italy, I
Uh,
was Boca Grande, I was big mouth as a little tiny girl. And
mhm.
that followed me through, even now, I'm a big mouth. If I see something that's not right, I'm going to say something.
Yeah.
I was kind of meant to be an entrepreneur, I guess,
Hmm.
in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost as though you're like, okay, you could have been viewed as like a troubled kid or like the big mouth or whatever that was, but you
Hmm.
just needed a way to like channel that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, you're gonna do what you want anyway. You're not gonna take
Yeah.
no for an answer. You're gonna kind of pave your own pathway, which when you're like a kid in school who's not following the rules or whatever that is, that's one
Yeah.
view of it. But then to be able to grow up into the adult that you are now, to be able to be like, no, now I'm using it to like literally pave the pathway
Yeah.
forward for other
Yes.
people for good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Finding it out on my own, being
Mm,
I had jobs. I've always been a worker.
yeah.
My parents required this as being young. My first, I must have been 5 or 6 of stomping cans and taking them to recycle them to get money.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. Yeah.
but there was all we were always doing something. We were a family of 6, not a lot of money, so you had to be inventive, and it was a great start for me understanding what it took. It wasn't luck.
Yeah.
Luck doesn't play into success at all. I didn't have a strong faith at the time. I do now as I've gotten older, although I
Yeah.
always had God in my life and he always showed up for me. I wasn't receiving him like I do
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I've just always been a believer that you put in the work and you do your time and you do even the trivial tasks. I wash dishes, I swept floors, I mopped floors, I scrubbed out toilets. My ego never has been an issue. And I always approach things with, from a servant leadership type of mentality, like,
Yeah.
what can I do to make this better? What can I do to help you? What roadblock can I remove? And that has transcended through time. And now there's a term for it. It is servant leadership. I know that now, but I'm a firm believer in that. I've led that way. I've learned, my first boss at 16 at Bob's Big Boy was horrific. I was a server there.
Yeah.
He was a horrible human. I stuck it out for 2 years, but I knew when I left there that what I would never do.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I would never be, what I would never do. Just kept on filling my tool belt. No matter where I went, I was a sponge.
Yeah.
I always asked questions. I always, put scenarios in front of people smarter than me and just sat there and soaked it up.
Yeah.
Soaked it up. My schooling was a school of hard knocks. I wasn't formally educated. I wasn't a great student. Graduated like by really the final straw was me taking CPR to get the final 10 credits to graduate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just, did the time, did the hard work, paid attention, knew when to not speak up. I learned through corporate America, when I transitioned into corporate America, that having a big mouth was not good, and getting, publicly humiliated several times because of it. I learned quickly, like, okay, now I know when, who, why, where to speak. It's not just wherever. So yeah, I was with Denny's and Five Guys then. After we sold our business, I went to Denny's and Five Guys. Denny's first. Because I was entrepreneur for 17 years, I'm like, what's corporate America like? My mom wanted to sell. I was done being in that business as wearing the hats of everything. And I was young still, I was 35. I wanted to see where my skill set could take me. And so challenged myself. So got a job with Denny's corporate, stayed there for several years. I think it was 7 or 8 years, worked my way up to director of operations in the franchise market in Washington. Somehow I got introduced to Five Guys Burgers and Fries. I wasn't sure if someone came into a Denny's and saw me and left their car. They took a long time of interviewing and flying me to Virginia, about 4 months, but landed a job as a franchise business consultant with them, stayed there for 7 years. The franchisee in Nevada liked me, so hired me on as his COO, spent several years there before landing with Mothership.
What drew you to Mothership?
I took 6 months off. I needed a break to kind of figure out again, do I want to stay in food? Yeah. Do I want to, I'd been in it for so many years. Like, is there something else out there? Do I want to be a nurse? I mean, I was really thinking on this level, again, wanting change in my life, wanting something different. And so I took 6 months off. I did a lot of gardening and baking and DIY stuff, and had fun. Yeah. And then after 6 months, I'm like, you know what? Let me check on LinkedIn and see what's going on. I haven't been checking. I've just been in my own thing. My mom lives with my husband and I, and so does his father. So we have elders we're looking after. So they take up time. But so I hopped on, and the first thing I saw was Mothership Coffee Roasters, was looking for an area manager. I read through it and I'm like, wow, this really appeals to me. It's back to my roots, something I know intimately about, and that I have a strong passion for, coffee. I applied and heard back from them, from Wani within a few days. Wani is our CEO and owner. We connected immediately. And at the end of the interview, we shook hands and I said, whether I get this position or not, I want you to know I love what your goal is and what you're looking for. And I wish you nothing but success. And I was hired an hour later.
I love that. Back then, when you were interviewing for the role with Mothership, was the company the same as it is now, as far as reputation wise, its values and the foundation? Was it still that?
I was hired July 2023. Okay. So, Wani's the first to admit, she needed someone within the four walls. And that was actually one of our first agreements when I was hired. We shook hands on my very first day, and we agreed that I was, the master of within the four walls, and she was the outside of the four walls. That's where she excels. She's our astronaut. She's the visionary 20,000 feet in the air, swooping in, seeing these gaps, seeing opportunities. She's great networking, has this skill set that's phenomenal. I don't have that skill set. Like I like to just, I like to stay in my wheelhouse. She's skilled at marketing. She's skilled at networking. It's amazing. She has great insight and perspective. There was a lot of change. I came on, and within 90 days, 50% of our team left.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So our entire bakery quit. I was the sole baker for 3 months.
Wow.
Doing, my husband was doing the deliveries to all the cafes. We have a commissary, so all our products are prepared daily and then shipped out to the location. So, I started from the ground with Mothership and built it up. So knowing that our foundation, because I knew Wani wanted to grow.
Yeah.
So I had to build that strong foundation to accept growth. So I just started one scone at a time.
Yeah.
And hiring, I was hiring great people and I was hiring not so great people, but, really got a good team together. And the managers that we have in place now have been with me for over 2 years. In our location. So there were few employees that stayed. No manager who I was hired on with are with us today. It's all a new team, 2 years old. But a couple of the baristas that stayed, I remember one day I was in the bakery and it shares a space with one of our locations. And I was just like, I was tired. I was working, 18-hour days. I had burns all over my arms from this friggin' high-powered oven. And I looked at her and she's looking at me and she has a smile on her face. And I just started bawling. It got me. Her positive attitude just got me. And I'm crying. And she's like, Lisa, it's okay. It's fine. What's the matter? Did you burn yourself again? And I go, no, I want to know why you stayed with me. And she looked at me and she goes, everybody deserves a chance. And that was from an 18-year-old girl, that just graduated high school, and I was 56 at the time. And I'm like, wow, if that's not a lesson to learn, I don't know what is, but it just stuck with me.
Yeah.
And, that just gave me wings, to keep on propelling. So now we have a commissary team of 16 now. We have an amazing commissary manager. We have an amazing team of delivery drivers that are out 7 days a week delivering coffee and product. We have an amazing events and catering team. We're at Allegiant Stadium. We've definitely grown rapidly in the last 2 years. All I did was create foundation. That's all I did was create this base. Wani, because of who she is and her trust, she allowed me to do it without any guardrails. I mean, I was on my own, and that's what I excel at.
Yeah. What are those types of things that you took with you from like the early espresso days and then the corporate world, and then you're coming into a fully fledged company?
My entrepreneur grit, of course, was in the 17 years. I feel that the corporate America is, let me tell you, it's not for the weak. You really I needed to dig into that grit and not being intimidated, not being bullied, or, I just had to lean into who I knew I was. They provided a lot of learning. They flew me to Atlanta to learn everything about Coke. I spent 3 days at the bottling company. I'm a master of Coke now, but they do that type of learning. Denny sent me to a 3-day workshop on sexual harassment, on ADA compliance, on that. So they really invest in your learning. So I feel I got my MBA through corporate America.
Yeah.
I really do. They taught me P&Ls. They taught me budgets. They taught me how to create a P&L, how to create a budget. I didn't have that knowledge as an entrepreneur. I just knew we were making money off of our prices. And if money was declining, let's raise our price,
Yeah. Yeah.
But now I know, the metrics of how to come up with that. But, they taught me inventory management systems, all of that. That is why I'm such a good fit at Mothership, because I have that entrepreneur grit, but I have that business background. So they taught me how to scale with 5 guys. We grew
Mm.
exponentially. They taught me how to grow a brand, how to manage finances, lead people,
Yeah.
run operations, stay resilient when things get hard. I really leaned into that with Five Guys. Is that, there were some tough things. I remember we had a opening in Canada. Oversaw Western Canada, and there was a
Hmm.
huge snowstorm. We were training that week, and 10 of our crew members were killed
Oh my
in
gosh.
two car accidents in that snowstorm. And it was devastating. I mean, it was devastating, but it was a big town of oil refineries. They were doing sand drilling for oil, so a lot of migrant work. But so it was really a small town, but with a lot of people who were there doing that specific job.
Yeah.
So the town just, we had to shut down for almost a month. We couldn't open
Mm.
because the town was so devastated by this. And the crew, we hired, they knew them. So the manager knew the parents. It was difficult, but that just taught me a lot on how to manage grief, how to manage turmoil, and when things are out of your control, that you just lean in on that human side. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that we, as kind of a society, especially like business within the US, I don't know that we talk about what it's like to deal with grief and tragedy from a
Yeah.
leadership business perspective. At least in
Hmm.
my experience, there's a little bit of a wall of like,
Yes,
keep your
I agree.
emotions, especially in like the corporate world, keep your emotions out of the business side, take care of yourself, don't bring your problems into work kind of thing. At this time, there are a lot of people dealing with a lot of hardships in their lives, and things seem to be coming increasingly tough. And
Yeah.
from a leadership perspective, I mean, you've lived this. How do you manage with that empathy? Like, what's your take on really continuing to lead a team through the grief and the tragedy?
Yeah. So what that taught me with Five Guys in that tragedy is that life oftentimes becomes bigger than work.
Mm.
And I lead with that compassion. If someone's having a tough day, and I witness that. If I see that, I'm going to tap them out, and I want my
Yeah.
managers to tap their baristas out.
Mm.
Hey, why don't you take some time? Our entire team gets PTO. Take a couple PTO days, figure this out, get the support you need, reach out. I don't want our managers to get into like a counseling position, because that can go
Yeah.
sideways too. I've seen that go
Hmm.
sideways.
Hmm.
There, we don't have that skill set, but we give them the grace to at least step away and kind of figure things out without pressure of working or earning a paycheck. A lot of people are showing up to earn a paycheck, but I think that we can all agree that no matter how time transcends, no matter through COVID, through presidencies, through 2008, we're all human. We Our human connection has never changed since in my 40 plus years of being in operations and leadership roles. Human contact and connection has never changed.
Yeah.
It's always been the same from the time I was young. I kind of spent some time like, what is that human connection? Because at the end of the day, that's how I see myself as a leader.
Hmm.
Like, I lead with humanity, humility, with grace, with the understanding that we're not perfect. Even though we could strive for it. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. Mistakes are okay. It's how we learn. That's how we grow. It's not about paychecks or title.
Mm.
It's about how you show up for people and how well you inspire them to believe in a shared vision.
Mm.
Whether someone stays with a company for years or eventually moves on to something else, what matters most is that they leave with a real understanding of what servant leadership looks like and what it feels like.
Yeah.
That is probably my biggest impact as a leader, is
Yeah.
I never want to go, if anything, if anything I do, I want folks to know that they're valued, they're appreciated, that they are the heartbeat of Mothership. And even beyond the customer, it's our team.
Yeah.
Our team is valued. And no matter how big we get, how we grow, I'm committed to never losing that
Yeah.
amongst our team. They're our heartbeat.
Is that a conscious decision or a conscious factor when you're thinking about what Mothership's reputation is externally? And I'll tell you that I'm
Yeah.
asking specifically because I found you through Mothership through Instagram in November looking
Yeah.
for companies who were taking care of their communities in some kind of a way. And I found Mothership because you all were doing that. And
Yeah.
so I'm wondering, in how much is that like a conscious decision when you're talking about externally with your community there?
Wani will tell you, Mothership was built to build community. We want it to be a place where you are comfortable to gather with friends, with business associates, by yourself, and you feel when you enter that we're inviting you, you're coming home. We want that environment. And a lot of our customers reference the vibe, like,
Yeah.
you guys have this vibe at Mothership, and it's from our employees,
Mm.
because we're hiring happy, healthy folks that want to be with us, that believe in our vision. We share our vision with them. They love that we're, giving back, that we do have our Sip with Purpose, our Brew with Purpose program. They enjoy that. That inspires you to want to be better. When you have folks that are coming in and they're saying, I don't like a foo-foo drink. I don't want the pumpkin spice latte, but I want to buy two of those for the Sip with Purpose. I just
Mm.
want my straight brewed coffee. It makes you feel good to be part of something bigger than yourself. They do have a job. They're earning a paycheck. We all need money.
Yeah.
But when you have that little kicker involved, that like the community is really looking for us to help support them and that we do support them, it feels good.
Yeah. A woman that owns a bookstore in Lincoln, Nebraska, that I think her episode actually just came out a week or two ago, but she was talking about the warm and fuzzies. And she was like, sometimes I wonder if it's an evolutionary thing and that we get the warm and fuzzies to continue to do good things for other
Yeah, I
people.
love
And like,
that.
it's a reminder. And
Yeah,
I think about that from a business perspective too. Like you're talking about, someone just wants a black coffee, that's all they're interested in, but they're like, sure, I'll buy something foo-foo for someone else. Like,
yeah,
absolutely. Especially, I'm going to go back to like when the world is tough and when the world's kind of crazy, to be able to be like, it's easy. Sure, here's an extra $5 if that will help someone
yeah.
out. Fine.
Yeah, and we notice during hardships, it doesn't impact our business.
Mm,
We've seen, exponential growth over the past 3 years, significant growth. My heart goes out to the companies that are struggling and closing. What a hardship to have to do that as a business owner. I could only imagine. But, Mothership's thriving, and I believe it's our culture,
yeah.
you know and our, Wani and I we have a deep faith. We're blessed to receive what we're receiving now, and it's not guaranteed. It's not going to be a given. Every day we feel blessed,
Yeah.
every day.
You've talked a lot about your team and the people and how much you guys have grown and stuff internally. What are those types of qualities that you're looking for when you're hiring people and you're trying to pick out, like, okay, you fit in here, this is what we need, you're going to fill that gap? What are the types of things that you're looking for?
We're definitely looking for those that show up bright-eyed, bushy-tailed to the interview.
Yeah.
We're getting to the interview early to see how they walk in and
Yeah.
approach us. Are they prepared? Are they put together?
Yeah.
We want to hear their history. We ask a series of questions. All the managers do. I do. My area manager does when we're interviewing. We have a list of questions that's really tailored around making sure we are getting the right fit. We also have, it's called Culture Index. We use them for our, all of our candidates have to take a survey. It gives us back the personality we're looking for that position. We know that, a specialist or a tech expert is not going to be good as a cashier, but we know a socializer or a persuader are great cashiers.
Yeah.
Our tech expert is our bakers, our craftsmen are our bakers, our baristas. So
Yeah.
it really helps us go through our candidates and pick the the right group for the position we're hiring for. So we're not setting someone up to fail either. We don't want to waste someone's time and put them in a position that they're clearly not going to excel at. Having managers leading and being present on the floor. We don't have clipboard managers. They're working positions. Majority of their day is spent in position. We have admin staff that does onboarding, offboarding, payroll. We don't have managers having to deal with stuff like that.
Yeah.
Their commitment is front and center to their team and customer service and making sure their four walls are looking really good.
What's your all's perspective on like the folks that you partnership from like a business partner perspective?
We have a head roaster who works closely with where our beans are farmed, where, are they sustainable? We focus on women farmers, co-ops, so that, our co-ops are able to support their families by being paid a fair wage. So we're sustainable sourcing. Women co-ops definitely are our top two. Of course, tariffs has interrupted. And, so our head roaster is very skilled at sourcing and trying to find the right farm, the right co-op that's meeting our standard as well. Yeah. So he's busy doing that a lot. Wani is very involved in that part of the business as well. We make all of our syrups in-house. Majority of our food is scratch made. Yeah. We do source our caramel chocolate sauces from a local chocolatier, Happy Ending Chocolates. So he literally is farm to, product. He's sourcing cacao and he's roasting it and grinding it from scratch. Yeah, it's phenomenal. You taste that. We pride ourselves on our community-based cafes. We say we just happen to serve food and coffee, at these cafes. Yeah. To the community that chooses us. Our commissary manager, Bud, is amazing. His taste profile, we're not going for artificial ingredients, for additives. We're going for that taste that sets us apart. You go, yes, this was made with love. This tastes different. And we're not the fastest by all means. We can't aim to be the fastest the way we do things. Our matcha and our chai, we hand whisk those. Every drink is made to order. We don't have big batches of product that we just dispense into a cup and serve. Of course, we try and have speed of service. But at the end of the day, if our customers are leaving happy and grateful for the space that, we opened up for them and content and they, see you tomorrow, then job well done,
Yeah. What is the lay of the land these days when it comes to when you're talking about like sustainability and prioritizing like women and co-ops? And I'm curious, you talked about the change that the tariffs have made on sourcing beans and things like that. But there's still a lot of complexity and some hurdles to jump over.
Sure.
Like, are you seeing that change at all in the recent years and it becoming easier to run a business based upon that sustainability value or that women co-op priority or any of those things?
We haven't. Actually, we haven't. I think there's more focus on it.
Yeah.
There's more knowledge and awareness of it. And, the brokers we work with as well, they're committed to delivering the product we're looking for as well. So we have, several QC checkpoints, making sure we're getting the product we're delivering. We also are a part of a co-op where we give back financially to that co-op every year based off how many pounds of coffee we purchased. And plus we're small. We're not Dutch Bros or Starbucks. We're not roasting 20,000 pounds a week or 100,000 pounds a week, probably. So we're still able to have more control because we're sourcing smaller shipments. We're working with the farmers that they're not supplying Starbucks. They can't supply Starbucks, because that isn't, several farms that you're talking about a country that supplies Starbucks, we're not at that scale. So we're still able to work closely and get the right right farmers that we're looking for.
That's so interesting when you're talking about, I would say, like benefits of being a smaller business and being able to kind of pick and choose. But at the same time, you're talking about scaling and growing so much just since you've been with Mothership in the past 2 years. Like, and you're nodding to when I ask you some of these questions, you're nodding to the
Yeah.
people that are in charge of each of those areas and your head roaster and all of your bakers and all of these things. Like, how much of that is trust in like, hey, we're gonna grow and you're gonna be the person, I'm gonna hand this over to you, but you still have to, we know that you're gonna be this person that is cultivating the community and you're the person that is the good fit for what Mothership is. Is it a balance or is it full just like trust because this is who you are as people, so people aren't coming to you with this mentality of like, we're gonna scrap all of this and just get the cheapest whatever that's out there,
Yeah.
regardless
Yeah.
of the things. And yeah,
Well,
that's something
as we
like,
scale, of course, our current model would have to pivot towards that scale as well.
mm-hmm.
We're still going to be ethical.
Yeah.
We're still going to be conscientious. With scale requires change.
Mm.
Now, the people who are in charge of our departments, they're put in that position for a reason. They have the experience, the knowledge, the go-to attitude, the initiative to be thinkers, doers, and I like to say rocket launchers. They're put in that position for that reason. I have trust in them. As the saying goes, trust but validate.
Mm.
And always fortune is in the follow-up. So I trust these folks. I meet with them weekly. We have our one-on-ones or our group meeting, whatever's working for that specific area, and there's always going to be follow-up questions. There's always going to be indicators that they have to account for, metrics that they're being held accountable for. So they all know the goalpost. They all know how to get there. And those that can manage to get there the right way, they're the ones that are recognized and why they're in this position. We lead with a moral compass. There's no shortcuts. I often say, yes, that may be cheaper, faster, quicker, but we're not water. Sometimes we can't take the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Sometimes the path is difficult and requires more thought, more focus for you to slow down. And something that you go, yeah, but I could do it in 2 days. It may take 2 weeks to do it right. And we want things done the right way. Nothing's easy in business. It's not the business of easiness.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe making being in the floral business or making art might be more relaxing. Or when you're in a business like this, it requires you to have your team that's thinking, and it's a fast-paced business. Dealing with, when you have a customer-facing business, you're dealing with every culture, every personality, and it's not one size fits all. So we have to be able to flow and adapt and pivot quickly. And some people can't do that, not because they're weak or they're not smart. It's just not in their abilities. As a leader, you always want to recognize that before it becomes a failure, or I guess before it becomes a failure. I feel I fail if I didn't make the decision to change that. I'm in a sense a change maker in my position. So if I allow someone to fail repeatedly, that's my fault.
Yeah.
And I like sleeping good at night. I want to look in the mirror. I think everybody does. They want to get up every day and say, I'm going to impact. I'm going to provide impact. I'm going to be part of a team. I want to be recognized. I want to be congratulated on wins, and I want to be a part of something that's impactful.
Yeah.
At least that's how I feel. And I think a lot of people feel this way, whether you're 80 or 10. I think it's just human nature to want to be part of a pack,
Yeah.
And if that pack is a positive pack that's leading in our community, we're not looking to change the world. We're looking to change a little dot on the map, and if we can impact more and more communities, being that little dot, it's like a yawn. It's contagious. And that's what we're looking for, is creating those moments of that little dot impacting. If we can do that on a huge scale, we've accomplished something great. We've done something great.
I I think that that's such a beautiful point. I'm going back to you scaling, and I have this like picture in my mind of people like you with this mentality of like, it's great to be impactful. It's great to give back to your community. It makes us feel good and it makes you want to be a part of things. And then you've grown and you've scaled so much to where you're in Allegiant Stadium and you're serving coffee to every person that comes in from out of town and from
Yeah.
out of the country and goes to a football game or whatever it is that's happening there. And there are so many people that you're passing and you're touching on a daily basis. And like, it might just be this tiny dot, but how often in our days as people do we look back and we're like, it was really nice that that person waved at me in the car the other day, or that smiled, or that was a sweet 30-second moment where the barista joked with me or told me she liked my glasses. It's like
Yep.
these
Yep.
teeny, teeny, tiny things that can be so
Exactly.
minuscule,
Yeah.
but yet you're again scaling to this point where you've got
Yes.
so many people. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. We just had our meeting, Wani and I, and we were talking on that, how our
Mm,
cashiers are, I mean, they are so important in our business. There's someone that we need to put on a pedestal. They're the face of Mothership. We have to be genuine when we
mm,
want to serve others. It can't be monetarily driven. You can't pay someone enough money to make them genuine. You
yeah,
either have it or you're not in customer service. We really make a point of putting the right people there that thrive in that position, and you could see them. They don't get tired of talking. They don't get tired of smiling.
yeah,
When someone comes in, "Hi friend, how you doing?" That's beautiful to witness, that genuineness. I love that. And we have a corporate trainer, his name's Arturo, and he's one of those people that
yeah,
like he never meets like everyone he meets is a friend.
yeah,
And it's beautiful to see that exchange and how customers just, you could see like tension removed from them. You could see the team like they're so excited to see him, and they get more relaxed and fun. And yeah, that genuine human connection is priceless. And again, it hasn't changed in the decades I've been doing it. It's one thing in business is technology's changed.
yeah,
You know, money's changed, transactions have changed. We now pay with our phone.
yeah,
That wasn't when I was young. You
hmm,
know, um, we pay with a watch. Who would
yeah,
have thought of that when I was 18?
yeah,
You pay your bill with a watch.
right.
But so much has changed, but that just has never changed. And so I double down on that every time we open a new location that we're looking at other locations. I double down on how is this going to impact our community? Is
Mm.
this an area we're going to thrive in? Is this an area that needs us?
How do you make those kinds of decisions? Like, you as a person, as a leader, what's your balance between like quantifying certain things that show up on a survey and numbers and P&L reports and all of those kinds of like heady logical decisions versus just like, my gut says that this person is going to be a good fit here.
I definitely lean into my gut, like you
Mm,
say, because of all the years. But I also have to remember that I have others that make hiring decisions that
mm,
I'm, overseeing them. So Albert Einstein, someone had asked him, how do you invent? If someone gives you something that you need to invent, how do you do this? And he goes,
mm.
I ask 100 questions. And by the 99th question, I will have that invention done.
Yeah.
So, questions, you can't ask enough questions. I call it staying in the question.
Mm,
So, when you're speaking with someone, I've always had a skill set. I'm naturally curious.
yeah.
That's why when we met, I'm like, so how'd you get into this? I'm
Uh-huh.
curious. I want to know what people do, what people think, where they're at, where they've come from. It's intellectual curiosity, I guess.
Yeah.
Asking questions will get you a lot of information
Mm,
as well as just observation. I observe people. People call it people watching, but I'll tell you what, you can gain so much insight off of watching someone.
yeah.
And I like to tell my managers, sit out in the lobby, have your lunch, drink a cup of coffee, do some admin work, because eventually your team forgets that you're sitting there and you start seeing the real team you have. And where you can high five the superstars and where you can swoop in and give that opportunity of correcting, and helping someone that maybe is struggling in a certain area. But that's a skill set that's learned, and not everybody has it, but I think it can be learned by looking at body language. I mean, listen, some people just don't have that insight. They don't care about what other people think or how they feel, and they're just like, well, I don't care what they look like. They just have to do a job. Those people probably aren't right for Mothership and probably don't work for us. But the ones that do work for us, we're very much in tune with how that person shows up every day, how that team member shows up every day. Good, bad, or ugly, they're ours. We hired them. They're ours. And, a servant leader does not terminate because we made a bad hire. We put in, at least 30 days of like, we are going to hold your hand. And we're either going to get you to that finish line, or we're both going to shake hands at the end of the 30 days and say, this wasn't a great fit, but thank you for the opportunity. There's nobody that is swimming with bricks on their head that we're watching and saying, oh, kick harder. Why didn't you put a life vest on? We're not leading that way.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I remember I had a direct report at one time who she was struggling, but not anything that was like awful or anything, but a little bit of like the anxiety of like, oh, I'm not doing well. I can tell I'm not doing well. And she came to me one day and was like, I'm just so afraid that you're going to fire me. And I was like, I can promise you it will not be a surprise, because you and I together will have exhausted every option that we could to try to make this better. And it might just be a different position, but like, please know that I'm not just going to like snap my fingers one day and be like, never mind. I told you yesterday you're doing great, but really you're not. And it was something that I learned because I was that anxious employee at some point in my career. And I went to my boss and was like, I'm terrified that I'm doing a bad job and you're going to fire me. And she was like, if you were doing a bad job, we would be having conversations about how you were doing a bad job. And it stuck with me in such a way that I was like, okay, that's the kind of leader that I want.
Yes, because it's fair. It's fair. Humans like fairness. We like fair. We don't like the unfair, the disadvantaged, we just have a great justice, internal justice meter, I guess you can say, of what's right and wrong. Most of us do. Most of us have a good moral compass. Majority of humans are phenomenal. I refer to them as humans. We're people, we're folks, we're neighbors, the majority of us are really great people.
And talking about that and thinking of other people that are really great, my last question that I have for everyone that you really set me up perfectly for is, who's another business or leader that you see out there in the world that's doing things the right way? And it can be anyone, someone that you used to work for, someone that's on your team, someone that you are a customer of, absolutely anyone that you think deserves a shout out.
Yeah. Well, there's so many great, motivational speakers out there now, who it's hard to pinpoint one. I get little bits from all of them and go, wow, that's great. I want to share that with my team. That's wonderful. I want to share that. So I'm really impressed with the inspirational speakers out there. It's changed. It's evolved from the business 101, like, KPIs, and it's evolved in this beautiful way that I love seeing. But I'm going to go back with my first mentor. Her name was Linda Hoffert, and this is when I was with Denny's. She saw something in me that I didn't see at the time, and she was a direct and no nonsense but incredibly effective leader. And she was our regional manager, and she had a gift for clearly communicating goals and change. And she didn't just explain them. She helped you see what success looked like. So that was the first introduction I received of painting the picture. She painted this picture that I'm like, I see it. I'm swimming in that ocean you just painted. I'm feeding the dolphins. I see it. I'm involved. Like a 4D experience, I guess. But she also was the first person to recognize my entrepreneurial spirit in corporate America, because that oftentimes is squashed. And even more important, she trusted me enough to give me space to try and to fail.
Mm.
And I knew that I would never lose my job if I failed. She gave me the opportunity to try. And what she did is she inspired me to think of the all you can eat grand slam. I was the inventor of that.
How are we wrapping up? We're just now finding that out, Lisa.
Yeah. So we had 18 locations in Washington. We had several that were struggling in sales.
Yeah.
And one of the locations that was struggling was in a lower demographic. And I pitched that to her. I'm like, I think that if you had an all you can eat grand slam, that we will get people just coming in the droves. And she's like, yeah, but they're going to be eating all the bacon and sausage, and that's a high food cost. I said, I don't think so. I think they're going to be eating all of our pancakes because they're so delicious. And that's what everybody wants. Can I get extra pancakes instead of toast? Can I,
Uh-huh.
And so she allowed me, I had to change the kitchens. I had to add more KDSs and split the kitchens in two for remake or refills and on this all you can eat. But we increased sales the first 3 months in that one location by like 45%. We had people coming in late night, 5 in the morning, 11 o'clock at night, getting all you can eat grand slams with we never made so many pancakes in our life.
Yeah.
And so that went to all 18 locations. It was such a success that corporate saw it. Like, how are you increasing these sales? And they took it on. Of course, I got no credit for it or no recognition, but I know what I did. And that was invigorating. That was so exciting, to be part of that and to be tasked with something that had so much impact and that could have failed miserably.
Yeah. They could have
You
been
know,
eating all the bacon and the sausage, and one of you
exactly.
guys broke.
Yeah, exactly. So that trust changed everything.
Yeah.
It built confidence. It made me more resilient,
Hmm.
even though I was pretty tough. And it gave me the belief that growth comes from learning, not perfection. I still
Mm.
carry those lessons to me today, and I still am an imperfect leader
Yeah.
that strives to learn every single day.
I love that mentality so much. Lisa, thank you so much for doing this with me. It, it's so cheesy. I end up saying this really often, but I truly mean it from the bottom of my heart. I think I could have talked to you for hours and hours. There's so
Oh,
much. First of all, your personality and is infectious and just
oh,
is
thank
so
you.
you're a great fit for Mothership. I can see why. Um, and I can see why your whole company is led like this. And I just can't thank you enough for taking the time to speak with me.
Oh, well, Andrea, I love you're very genuine and authentic. I think whatever you choose to do is going to be phenomenal. Um, and I appreciate this opportunity really, and I wish nothing but success for you.